Hello. Now, before I move on to my Nagato ranked commentary or ranked analysis, I thought to highlight why I'm using the spotter plane on my Nagato, because I'm going to be using a technique that many people might not understand when I quickly show it, so I decided to properly demonstrate it. Now, people often use spotter planes quite wrong. They use it usually to increase the distance they can fire, and while that is a possible use of the spotter plane, that is in my opinion not the optimal use of the spotter plane. Now the whole advantage of spotter plane is the fact that it gives you a bird's eye view, meaning basically it elevates your camera higher up, and this makes it much easier for you to triangulate distances where you want your shells to land. Now this is especially valuable when you're shooting at smoked up targets, because if you don't use the spotter plane you can only see on a horizontal level where they are they a bit more to the left, are they a bit more to the right? But when it comes to adjusting the distance, it's very hard. However, when you pop the spotter plane, you can easily see where the shells originate, and you can adjust your crosshair to that point with the help of the spotter plane, and that is how the spotter plane kinda hard counters a lot of this smoke camping tactics or the smoke camping meta. As you can see there, blind shot citadels. I've been doing this for a while, and people tend to call, yeah, of course you get the usual cheating accusations and such, and when you get used to it, it kind of becomes a reflex almost. Practicing it is recommended, especially if you play Nagato, which has these heavy punishing shells, and with the help of the spotter plane is really able to punish smokes heavily. Like when you get used to it, it almost becomes a habit. Like here, I'm spotted, smoke blooms, shells start coming. The first thing I do is instantly pop my spotter plane, put my crosshair, wait until I see the origin of the shells. Come on, baby, one more volley. Oh, I wasn't spotted, I need to get spotted again. And just wait patiently until you see, and there we go, that lower target there, right between where you see the shells originate, and almost like magic, you are heavily punishing anyone who tries to smoke fire at you. Anyways, this was the quick guide I wanted to cover before moving on to the actual commentary. Right, moving on to the actual Nagato commentary. Now, Nagato was actually one of my top tier battleship picks for this season, for multiple reasons. One of them, of course, being what I just showed there. The accurate, powerful guns allow you to punish smokes in surprisingly potent ways. I mean, I've often said that smokes do not make ships invulnerable, but I still quite rarely see people actually shoot into the smokes, and I rarely see people use the spotter planes to punish the smokes. But I guess that's something that will probably in this season change quite a lot. Well, I mean, people will learn, I assume, and when they learn to abuse it better, then the smoke will also lose some of its strength. The game itself, I think this might be also within the rank 10 bracket, I'm not entirely certain, but surprisingly my team chose to go for A. Now there is a carrier in this game. Carriers are fairly rare, and when there are carriers, usually you would want the double fighter plane, but I'm already started switching to the spotter plane, mostly because there's a lot more smoked up cruisers and smoked up battleships than there is carriers in general. And ultimately you kind of want to stick with your fleet regardless. You don't want to be running off alone, especially in a big clumsy ship like the Nagato. You don't want to run off somewhere where you can just get burned to a crisp by HE spam. So carriers really aren't that much of a threat to you, at least not in the early game. Later on, when carriers get killed or cruisers get killed and such, it might become a threat. But usually carriers tend to play almost too aggressively early on, and they tend to throw away a lot of planes, which means that they don't really have the strength, the plane strength later on to actually have a big impact on the game. Of course, better carriers know to preserve their planes, but so on. Anyway, I'm of course going to stick in with the fleet, and first thing that comes into play is of course the range of the Nagato. The range is, you have a very high effect, or very long effective range, you might say. Like at these ranges, hitting anything with something like a Gneiser now is highly unlikely, and with a Scharnhorst the issue is dealing damage at this range. You need some really lucky pens to actually deal consistent damage, whereas the Nagato can easily punish ships at this range, easily. You can get citadels on just about anything. you are able to heavily punish them, and you're basically a massive threat from the get-go, which is of course one of the reasons why I greatly like this ship. The Belfast is actually going to avoid, no. Well, I didn't even get proper hit on him, but I still did 7k damage, considering he has 35k, and he can't heal. All the damage counts, all the damage adds up. They run a Shores, a ship that I don't recommend using. Of course, one of the things with the Nagato is patience. You don't want to shoot until you can get that juicy shot, and I wait for the Shores. Is he going to commit to the turn? I make sure he commits to the turn, and once that I see that he's committing, that's when I pull the trigger. Now the Shores, of course, large ship, large citadel, bad turn radius, combined with a threat like the Nagato, good accuracy at long range, and bam. That Shores is down to 300 HP. That's his entire health pool wrecked. That was almost a one-shot on a cruiser from 17 km, and that is of course why I really enjoy this ship. So the Shores, if all we need is one guy to land a random shell on him and he'll be dead, which I hope will happen quite soon. Meanwhile, Nagato showing a lot of broadside, need to be careful with that of course. The Nagato HP pool is quite deceptive. It's not nearly as tanky as it looks based on the HP pool, but it wasn't for the sheer tankiness that I preferred this ship, it was more for the firepower more than anything else. Of course, and the accuracy, well, that kind of sums up firepower as well. Someone managed to finish off the Shores, the Gneisenau got a pen on him, or well, any hit basically, and he got killed off. Which is of course, Shores, not a recommended cruiser for ranked, for things like that. You have to play so careful, and even if you play careful, you can get unlucky and get penned from awkward angles and so forth. Scharnhorst, he's not full angled, he's giving a lot of broadside. I still aim for his superstructure. At this range, his armor isn't really that effective against me, because I can get plunging fire on him, so 10k volley on him as well. And the game has barely started, we're 5 minutes into the game, and I already accumulated, what, 53k damage. And here I'm going to be using a trick. This is the reason why I went over the spotting plane usage early on, so I wouldn't have to explain what I'm doing here. When I pop my spotter plane, I trace the shell origin, and then I pull the trigger. And this is of course why I really love the Nagato in ranked with spotter plane. That was 2 citadels, and all his HP pool gone. I did over 30k damage, and well, around 30k damage, and my Belfast buddy here I think landed like 1 hit on him, and he actually got the kill instead of me. But it's 5 minutes 30 into the game now, 82k damage. And they're still moving into position, and I'm just slaughtering them with the gunpowder of this ship. The Belfast even is asking, what the fuck was that? Because he's so confused what just happened. He was smoked up, he was undetected, and he got 1 shot basically in the smoke. So I explained to him, double sit, never to give him too much broadside, and he gets punished. And I'm very slowly moving forward. I'm really not in a hurry to move forward, and that's something you have to keep in mind. Whereas Gneisenau and Scharnhorst and these, they kind of want to get closer. I'm already within my effective range. I don't really want to get too much closer than this. Here I make a mistake. I glance to the left, and I see that my plane is spotting that mass. Well, first of all, I also think I considered it the Sims, but I also see that the plane is above the mass, so I think there's no threat of torps from that direction. However, somewhere between all the plane spotting and the planes hovering about, that mass managed to get torps off. So I end up eating a really unnecessary set of torps that could have been avoided if I had just turned left hard into the DD as soon as it was spotted, but I blindly thought that they would be plane spotted. So that was definitively my mistake. Mistakes must be pointed out, and it's usually better to play it safe than take unnecessary risks, as I did here. I took an unnecessary risk and counting on the plane spotting them, and it cost me a lot of HP, and now I'm gonna have to play a lot more careful than I otherwise would. Our Sims was running off somewhere, hunting a DD, sailing around in their base all alone, which is of course absolutely idiotic. I already mentioned this in the Shiratsuyu game, but shouldn't be running off alone in a DD, especially not when there's a carrier around, because of course the carrier will just plane spot you. I'm using a trick here. If you guys wonder what just happened there, if you zoom in, well, you press left shift to zoom in as usual, then you tap the M, the map key, but you don't let the animation finish, so it goes into the full map view. You just tap it over and over again. You get this kind of like the spotting plane effect that you can see slightly higher than you would normally be able to see. And while you can't really use it for aiming, you can use it to see the position and the angle of the ship behind the cover, so you kind of know about where to place your crosshair. It's a situational thing, it's mostly information, but it's probably worth learning and worth using. in the beginning, usually people don't really see the value of it, but sometimes it has a very significant value because, well, it allows you to see if a ship behind the island is slowing down, about to turn, these kind of things that you might not see from the minimap itself. I am turning away now. Of course, those torps, the problem with eating torps is naturally that it's very hard to heal from the damage, since it basically counts as citadel damage, and citadel damage you can heal something like, is it 10% for battleships? You heal almost no citadel damage. So that's of course, while I have a lot of heals, but I can't really use them for much. So I focus fire the torpedo bombers, going for nice now. They went for him because they couldn't see me, and I turn away and start angling because I don't want to give any easy shots for the Scharnhorst. And now that I'm spotted, I certainly don't want to be giving broadside to the Nagato. Nagato angles against me, but these guns are so big that they overmatch the front armor of the Nagato. So even if he points his bow right at me, you can see I can easily penetrate him. And that's because, well, these guns overmatch anything. They overmatch Colorado just as easily as they overmatch Nagato. So angling doesn't really reduce damage from me at all. Well, angling like I am doing reduces, but nose in doesn't work. Obviously you want to bait the enemy into shooting your heavily armored broadside instead of overmatching your nose. He is turning away. I try to get as much damage on him as possible before he slips behind the island. He had a few good hits, but not really as much damage as I wanted. I have gotten high caliber already, which is of course always nice. It gives you an idea of just how much damage I've been dealing to multiple different targets. But overall, I like the... First of all, I have an escape route, in case they suddenly start focusing me. I have my heal, I have my repair. So if I get a lot of focus, I can go full speed and hide behind the islands. Second of all, I'm very hard to torp right now, because I am kinda in cover. So I don't really mind this position I'm in at all. I'll start working on the Scharnhorst now. Aim, of course, for his superstructure, not his hull, since the hull might bounce my shells. And, well, 91 HP. I guess I'm not allowed to get any kills today. And I decide to turn in because he is obviously dying, so there's really no more threats on this side, and I'm gonna move towards the cap with my Belfast instead. Note that you can make this tight turn, seems very hard to make, but if you move slowly, the slower you move in a battleship, the tighter your turning circle is. And of course, so I think I do quarter or half speed here in order to make this turn, but keep that in mind if you need to make these really tight turns. It's always better to be able to keep your ship moving, because grounding can be a very quick way to get focused by a carrier, DD, whatever, and you never want to ground. So rather slow down your speed and make a tight, slow turn than grounding, having to reverse and then do it again. I do sometimes do tactical groundings, which is not actually intentional groundings, but in ranked it's not as recommended to do them. Sims, I have my spotter plane up. Now you don't want to shoot right away, I want to see him make a juke first. And there we go, he's juking to the left. And now that he stops juking and he resumes his normal course, that's when I pull the trigger, so that because now he has to like go in the direction he was meaning to go. Unfortunately, once again, I'm still not allowed to get a kill, but I do chunk him quite well. Hopefully the Belfast might be able to finish him off. Our Shiratsuyu manages to kill the Saipan. I don't like the Shiratsuyu player too much because he seems to have a tendency to go hunt carriers in these ranked games, which is of course not recommended at all. It's a very risky business that will only work if the enemy team is bad, or, well, in this case the carrier positioning is off for their down on members or whatever, but he tends to do it right from the start of the game, and that's of course a good way to get you to die in a DD and be very, well, not useful at all to your team. Basically be useless, because you don't give spotting, you don't give all these other help, all these other types of help that I showed in my Shiratsuyu commentary. Maz, he's slowing down in front of me. Not very smart, considering my guns are loaded. I wait until he's slowed down, then I shoot, do a nice chunk of damage. I get Confederate, which is in a ranked game is always amusing. But the Belfast I think pops radar, or Hydra. He's close enough probably for Hydra as well. It doesn't matter, this Maz is gonna die, and this game is most likely going to end. So, this game, even though I made a big mistake in eating the torps, other than that, it did show the sheer amount of damage this ship is capable of pumping out. 154,000 damage in a ranked game that only had, I think, what, 2 battleships? Did it only have 2 battleships, actually? Yeah, they only had a Scharnhorst and a Nagato. So the potential for damage is even higher than this. Sadly, I didn't get a single kill, but I still got a nice 2.3k base XP. And yeah, this was the 10 to 5 ranked bracket on NA, I think. Yeah, NA, my playing potato god. So overall, this game kind of shows the strengths and why I picked the Nagato as my ship. You saw the way the shores at 17 km was in no way safe from my damage. You saw the way the smoked up Belfast still got heavily punished. Even battleships, everything. Like, it has weaknesses, of course, the Nagato, but the sheer gunpowder is still the reason why I consider this probably the strongest battleship for ranked. Moving on, detailed report. Well, not too much potential damage since I ate mostly torps. The torps were the biggest chunking damage I ate. And, well, my damage is spread out because I shot everything. I even shot the Saipan when I had my spotter plane up, and I did a 13k chunk to him. So kind of shoot everything, because your range allows you to shoot everything and your accuracy allows you to deal damage to everything. Anyway, let's move on to my recommended build for this ship. Right, starting off, we can start with the consumables, premium repair. Well, actually, you shouldn't be playing stock, but if you want to upgrade path, you go for the hull first, the acceleration next. Premium repair, premium heal, and I use premium spotting aircraft. Fighters might be okay if there's a lot of carriers, but I like the spotting aircraft a lot to deal with the smoke meta. Main armaments mod 1, aiming systems mod 1, and well, nah, I'm gonna just stick with it. I'm not even considering AA. Damage control 1 and 2. Now don't go for rudder shift because there's so much sitting still and so much smoke camping that I feel like the straight up tankiness from damage control mod 2 is more important than the rudder shift. Perks wise, I prefer the double catapult aircraft even when I'm using spotting aircraft, because first of all, it allows you to quickly switch between spotting aircraft and fighters without having to respec. And second of all, the tier 1 perks aren't really that valuable, and I think the double spotting planes give you so much information because they spot torps around you, they spot planes, they spot enemy ships around you. Having this double one available is actually surprisingly useful. Expert marksman and adrenaline rush, superintendent, vigilance, and concealment expert. If I had a 19-point captain, I might even go for a straight up more tanky build, meaning jack of all trades and maybe high alert with the last 4 points, so just faster heal and faster repair, just faster consumables and everything, just to be able to endure longer in this game, since survivability is so important in ranked. But as for now, this is my 15-point build. Anyway, that was my Nagato commentary, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something new perhaps. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys the next time.